Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Today I am joined by our longtime producer. Many of you know her, our lovely Sabrina Nasser. Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be back.
Super excited for today's conversation because we are making a big change to the podcast in 2026, and we're here to talk all about it, give you the context, our vision for the future. I know for you guys, especially those of you who have been listening for a long time, you have been with us through so many evolutions and improvements, quite frankly, of this show. And so we're really excited to bring you with us to the next stage of Cubicle to CEO. And since we've always been a company that builds in public and that really values transparency, we wanted to kind of share the thought process behind why we're making these changes because it's not, I don't know, it's never enough just to say like here's what we're doing. Like we really want you guys to be involved and part of this process. So anyways, that's what we're here to talk about, but Sabrina is going to help me out by guiding the conversation because otherwise I'll just be on a 45-minute monologue. So let's get into it.
Yeah, I just have to say that I'm so excited. Ellen and I have been on a few calls now to talk about where the direction of the podcast is going. And I feel like both of us are just very excited and lit up by these new ideas that we're bringing to you guys. So I'm just really excited for you guys to kind of get a glimpse into what's to come and why we're doing it. So, I mean, let's just kick it off. What is prompting this change as we get into the podcast next year?
Yeah, so this is a great question. This is something that's kind of been a long time coming, but I felt like now is the right time to make this move. So, if you haven't been around our podcast since the very beginning, we launched this show in the summer of 2019. At the time, it was just a passion project. I didn't have a clear vision for exactly what this show would become. And now, especially since we made the move into case studies, which is what our show is really known for now, about what was that, like 2.5 years ago, I think?
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's got to be around then.
Right? Like
The
20, I
time
think it's like
flies.
right.
I
I
had
know it
no
really
idea.
flies. I think it was like at the end of 2022, maybe early 2023.
Yeah, I think
But,
so.
ever since we shifted our entire company to a media business model and then also shifted the focus of our show to being weekly behind the scenes case studies, we have really treated this show as a product in and of itself. So, a lot of people use their podcasts to market other offers in their business, but we really use and treat our podcast like its own paid product, except for we don't really get paid for it. So we're just now finally saying, okay, we'd like to get paid for this product that we're creating. And this is 6 years into us creating this show as a free resource for you all. It's been a huge labor of love. And we've been told actually many times over the years that we should get paid for the quality of our content. I mean, I've heard that in DMs. I've literally seen that written in reviews, and I quite frankly agree. We put a lot of research, prep time. At least I would say 25% of my week goes into something related to the podcast and to producing this for you all weekly, and full-time wages. I mean, Sabrina, before she started her own business at the beginning of 2025, her full W-2 employee role was for the podcast. And then obviously there's my wages and, even the wages of other contractors that are involved in making this show possible. So we rarely sell anything of our own from the show because we treat the content itself as the product. And so we're really ready to just like move into its next natural stage.
Yeah. And not to say that other podcasters don't put in a lot of like prep work and all of that stuff, but especially just with the detailed nature of our show and making sure that people are willing and able to bring transparency to the table. All the numbers, it goes through many filters of getting the content and the information ready to bring to you guys. And I think making it paid only allows us to get deeper into the weeds of all of that and bring you case studies that are even more exciting and more detail oriented and more actionable. So I see it becoming so much more than it already is, which is just like very exciting.
Me too. I feel honestly more lit up about the podcast going into next year than I have in a long time because there's so many reasons why we want more funding for this podcast. We're going to talk all about, all the things that we have planned for you guys and where we see this money being routed towards. We'll also explain more in depth. I know we kind of just like jumped right into the deep and you're like, "Wait, paid podcast, what are you talking about? What does this look like?" Don't worry, we're going to get to like all of the nitty-gritty details of what's changing next year, what you can expect, what the paid aspect looks like. So we'll get into all the details in a moment, but we first kind of just wanted to frame like the why and the context before we get into the details. And honestly, the way I think about this change is, especially because our business model is one of a media company, I think of this as very similar to other forms of traditional media, right? Like in the same way that viewers pay for other forms of media, right? You pay for Spotify or Apple Music to consume the works of artists that you love listening to, right? You pay for Netflix or Hulu or HBO to pay for the content that is accessible through those platforms. And when you think about traditional media like TV or film, like those cost a lot of money to produce well, millions and millions of dollars, right? You have to pay the talent, you have to pay the crew, you have to pay the production, you have to pay the studios who fund it, you have to pay the distributors. They all play a role and need to get paid. And I think even though podcasting has been around for decades now, it's still a newer form of media, but I feel like it is no less involved, I guess. It's just that oftentimes, one or two people, or if you're lucky, if you have a huge show, maybe a team of like 20, 50 people, right, are playing all of these roles. Like we're talent, but we're also production, but we're also the studio that is funding this or bootstrapping this for the last 6 years. We're also, paying for the distribution. We're paying for everything that's involved in making this show possible. So I don't know if that analogy helps, but I sometimes feel like when I tell people like, "Oh, we're a media company," and then relating it to a form of media they're already familiar with consuming or paying for, it helps it click in people's minds more.
Yeah, and I know you've said it multiple times already, but I do want to emphasize that like Cubicle to CEO is a media company. So while other businesses have podcasts that are free, that's not their main focus. They have other offers, they have other services, and the podcast is just kind of like a nurturing channel, whereas this is our thing. This is the big hoopla that we do. And so it makes sense for it to become a paid product. And I also want to shed some light on how the podcast has been making money so far in the last few years versus what we can do now that we'll be moving into a more premium podcast model.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is also something really interesting. I don't know if a lot of you know like the traditional ways, like are intimately familiar with advertising models and things for podcasts, but they're really not as lucrative as people may think. Like when people hear, "Oh, you monetize your show through ads," while yes, that is a income stream, it is way, way, way smaller than you may think. If we're talking about pure ads. So let me back up for a second and explain. Most of the time, when you are listening to a show that has ads run on it, right? Especially if the sponsors are like larger corporate brands or anything other than like a fellow small business, like a peer or whatnot that's sponsoring the show. Typically, those ads are run on a CPM model, CPM standing for cost per mil or cost per thousand impressions. And in the podcasting space, your impressions are your downloads, right? Your listens. And so it's actually quite similar. Again, I'm relating it to something that you may have had more familiar experience with if you're listening in. If you've ever run paid social ads for your own business, like through Meta, when you go into Meta Business Manager, right, and you're like paying for, let's say, reach ads or engagement ads, you know how you can see your CPM costs in your ad dashboard, right? It's like, this is what Facebook is charging you to serve your ad in front of 1,000 people. So it's like $26 CPM or $55 CPM or whatever it's like. Very similar in the podcasting space. CPMs can really range from as low as like $13, $15 per thousand to, I mean, even on the higher end, it's still pretty low CPMs. I would say like $35 CPMs. So as you can imagine, unless your show is doing hundreds of thousands of downloads every episode or millions of downloads every episode, it's like the biggest shows in the world, You cannot rely solely on ad revenue to sustain a podcast, right? It just doesn't work that way. Now, we've been lucky that we've been able to roll our podcast sponsorships or ads sometimes into larger media packages that we sell to sponsors. So in those cases, we don't always have to follow a CPM model. Sometimes we're able to like build deliverables into larger packages, or some of our listeners or our small business community have also come on our show before and sponsored episodes, which is incredible, and we're so grateful for their support. And you're going to hear even more of those next year with some of the incredible business owners that joined Instant Influence for 2026, which is like an advertising bundle that we sold over Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So we're super excited. We're still going to continue those things, but even so, even with those additional layers, it's not equivalent to the amount of, like, if we were looking at the pie chart of how much of our company's time, labor, and money resources goes into producing our show, and tangentially our free newsletter, because our newsletter is directly tied to the case studies on our show. If we look at those two products in our business, and then you look at the percentage of revenue that those two products bring in compared to where we actually make our money, it just doesn't match up. Like, the amount of time and resources spent doesn't equate to the revenue here. And it has, in a lot of ways, limited our ability to up level our show in the way that we want. And we can talk a little bit more in a moment about what we actually mean by that. Like, what are we trying to do with more funding for our podcast? But I'm going to let Sabrina jump in and fill in any gaps I may have missed from your perspective as a producer.
Yeah, I also you mentioned the newsletter. The newsletter still is going to be free. I feel like that's worth mentioning, and we'll still be focused around the podcast content that will be going behind the paywall. So if you like our content, but maybe it's not the right time for you to purchase behind the paywall, you still can get access to what the gist of the episode is through the newsletter.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to bring up. We definitely want to keep our newsletter a free resource. Now, keep in mind, our case studies are very detailed, right? Even with how detailed we are right now in the newsletter, if you actually do both, like if you're someone who reads our newsletter summary and also listens to the podcast, there's so many additional just like layers of detail, nuances, data that's presented in the audio form of the case study compared to what we're able to fit into the newsletter form. So going into next year, because our case study episodes will actually be locked behind a paywall. And again, I know we've like barely scratched the surface on what next year's going to look like. So don't worry about the details yet. We're still in the why, we're still in the context, but just a little preview, yeah, a little teaser. Even though these case studies will be behind a paywall, we are still going to write about them in the newsletter. They just may not be the same exact like length or detail as they have been, to be respectful to our subscribers who are paying for access to the full scope of the content. So you're still going to get value from the newsletter. Like, that's really important to us. We hate fluff. So there's definitely going to still be like tangible things you can grab from the newsletter. But if you want the entire breakdown, all of the numbers, all of the strategies, you're definitely going to want to continue listening in to the case studies here on the podcast. So that's that. The newsletter stays free, and some of our podcast content will also stay free. Again, we'll talk about that more in depth in just a moment. So what's changing next year? Oh, wait, actually, right before we say that, I did want to talk just a little bit about what we want to use the money for, because I think this is something that I'm super excited about. There's a couple things that I really want to do with increased revenue that comes from the podcast specifically and subscriber revenue specifically. So we want to hire a podcast focused social team. So right now you'll probably have noticed that we've done kind of like the bare minimum on social for the podcast. In fact, this year we reduced it even more to literally just like a talking head clip each week of our episodes. And we really want to hire a team whose entire job is just focused on how do we create really excellent social content for the show to increase reach, increase discoverability, and then also really like pull out the best moments, mic drops, you name it, for our audience that may not always have the chance to tune in every single week for, an hour or so to our regular episodes. So We want to do that. That's quite expensive if you want to hire like a really good agency who specializes in this. We also want to bring back YouTube and the video aspect of our podcast. So that's something we did for what was it, like a year or two, Sabrina? I mean, you were kind of more in charge of that piece.
Yeah, we have been on YouTube for a while. We started off with more like teasers and then we went into full episodes. I think that was for 2 years. But one of those 2 years, we had a contractor who was helping us. And while that was great and super helpful as far as like my workload as the podcast producer, it also just is another financial cost that goes into this free product that we were producing.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. And so bringing back that video piece is important to us, not only because that's the direction a lot of podcasts are going, but also I've actually gotten some messages from people who have discovered our show on YouTube this year, or used to listen or watch, I should say, our show on YouTube. And we're like, I miss your videos. Like, are you guys still active as a show? And I was like, yes, we are. Like, we've been still consistently putting out content, but they don't know because they consumed exclusively through YouTube. And so I think bringing that video aspect back is important to me for the long-term growth of our show. So that's another big thing. And then the piece I'm actually most excited about is attracting even higher caliber guests and harder to access guests so that you all can benefit from those conversations and those behind the scenes case studies that you might never hear, or you might have to pay like thousands of dollars to be in a room with these people or to be in their own programs and containers to have access to this information. We want to bring it to you, and attracting some of those higher caliber guests or speakers, as you know, sometimes may cost. Sometimes we'll have to pay for getting some of those big names through the door for their speaking time, for access to this information that they're sharing with our audience. And we can't do that currently because we literally don't have a budget that's allocated for the show, because the show doesn't really, like we've already explained, the show doesn't really return any of that revenue. So there's only so far we can go as a bootstrapped business without taking on funding from somewhere. And at this stage in our business, to me, it doesn't make sense to like raise funds from investors. I don't want to become an investor-backed business. I actually quite like the nimbleness of being a bootstrap business, right? We have a lot more creative control. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we always want to prioritize our listeners and the quality of content that we're producing for you all. So we feel this is the best way to do it. Also, kind of in line with that, we want to be able to occasionally film in person. So there's studio costs associated with that, flying to the cities where these guests live, or even flying in guests for recording to wherever we are. All of that has been part of our dreams, but on hold because we didn't have the budget available. And we're really hoping that with more funding, we're able to finally start to implement some of these things. So that's what I'm personally most excited to spend the money on. But Sabrina, if there's anything else you want to add before we get into what's changing next year.
No, all of that is so exciting. Also, I'm like very much a video podcast watcher. That's just how I consume. And so I know that there's a whole segment of listeners that I'm sure would love to listen to our content, but haven't had the access to the video format that would really engage them. So I think we're just trying to appeal to as many people that are interested in this kind of content as possible, especially with getting higher caliber guests as well. Like, imagine getting exclusive case studies with transparent information from your dream CEOs that you want to be in the room with. Like, that's our goal. That is what we're trying to do. And I think putting this behind a paywall allows us to be able to do that and bring that to you guys. So yeah, it's all very exciting. And I feel like we have set the stage. You kind of know the why behind what's going on now. And so I think now's the time that we need to talk about what is actually changing. What can our listeners expect from the content that's being put out next year?
Yes. So the good news is the content that you love are behind the business case studies on Mondays, where we dig into one specific strategy that the featured guest has tested in their own business, and they break down exactly how they executed it, what the results in revenue were. All of that is staying the same. That content format is not changing. What is changing is that those Monday case studies will become our locked episodes. So you'll have to be a paying subscriber to listen to those case studies. Now, we will still be posting teasers from these case studies as we're going throughout the year so that you can sample different episodes as a non-subscriber. So you'll still see an update in your podcast app every Monday with a little sample of that week's case study, but the full episodes will be behind a paywall, as Sabrina said. Now, the good news is that I say nearly because it's not 100%, but I would say like 97% of all of the existing 400 episodes in our back catalog that we've created for you for free over the last 6 years will remain free. That's our gift to you. We're not changing anything about that. So even new people who are discovering our show for the first time, or people who have just, discovered our show, you still have years worth of content that you can binge through, and we want to keep that available and accessible to you. Also, on Wednesdays, when we post bonus episodes, which those don't necessarily happen on a strict cadence, but I would say typically 1 to 2 bonus episodes you can expect each month. Those bonus episodes on Wednesdays will continue to be free as well. And that's in huge partnership with our incredible businesses that are part of Instant Influence. Their sponsorship dollars are making those episodes continue to be free for you guys. So that's a huge thanks to our small businesses who are investing in our community, investing in making media like this accessible and free to all. So you can still expect at least 1 to 2 episodes, I would say, a month for free, and then all of those sample teasers. But yeah, the case studies are the main thing going behind the paywall.
And I also want to say, talking about the small business sponsors for our bonus episodes, I think that has been one of the most fun implementations that we've done in recent years, just because, you get ads all the time from different big companies, but these are people who are very heart-centered, they're community members, and they're also brilliant and deserve the visibility. So I'm so glad that we're going to continue to do those and keep those free for anyone who is interested in hearing from them, because there is so much brilliant insight to be shared from people who may not have like a million followers, like there are so many amazing business owners that deserve those extra eyeballs, those extra ears, so it's it's all so fun. And I'm so excited for Instant Influence.
Yeah. And that's a huge core part of our mission, right? Is like, we've always built this platform to highlight underrepresented voices in business media. There's a lot of big business media outlets out there, Entrepreneur Magazine, Business Insider, right? CNBC, NBC, like all of these like big traditional media giants. But oftentimes the businesses that are featured in those platforms, either the founders all kind of are monolithic and they kind of represent just like one type of person, right? Or they are really focused on highlighting venture-backed businesses that are making tens of millions, hundreds of millions, reaching unicorn status, selling for these big exits or going public on the stock market. And those are incredible business stories, but like there's so many other business stories that deserve to be told. And that's why platforms like ours exist, in my opinion. So very excited about keeping those free. And I would say that if you've been listening to our podcast for a long time, then you already know those Wednesday episodes kind of allow us to explore different formats, because our Monday case study episodes are like a very specific format. We're always looking at only one specific strategy, and it has to have met one of the 4 markers. Like this strategy that we're doing a case study on always looks at how it either grew someone's revenue profits, how it grew their team, how it expanded their time, or how it grew their audience. Audience is the last one. Yeah, I was like, my mind had a blank moment. Anyways, so those are really specific, right? But on Wednesdays, the experts that we bring on our show, they're really able to dig more into their area of expertise and teach you frameworks, teach you specific tips that they have. We can deep dive into certain conversations that aren't centered around a case study. So I do like having the ability to bring you different types of content. And that's also going to be true of our locked content, our Monday episode. So this is something new that we're going to test in 2026, is exploring some different formats we're still going to mostly be case studies, but we're also going to try things like roundtables, because sometimes we have like a specific topic we want to dive into. Like, for example, I'm just going to tease this. One of the roundtables I really want to do next year is bringing on a roundtable of event hosts and asking them like what's actually working right now to sell out events in 2026, and having them, it's still like mini case studies. Like each guest would be sharing like, here's one specific thing that I tried that helped me sell out my event, so that you're getting to hear the nitty gritty, the data, the details that you're used to, but you get to hear multiple perspectives and the back and forth conversation. So like some case studies might be presented as a roundtable instead of just me and one guest. Also, Sabrina, you're going to hear a lot more of her on the show. Sabrina, do you want to talk about what that type of content might look like?
Yeah, I mean, I can't be the only one thinking that I love listening to Cubicle to CO, but I wish I heard more of Ellen's perspective. I want to hear what she does in her business. I want to hear her opinions because she's brilliant and she's got so many of
Oh,
them. And so I know that a lot of people have been wanting that. So we are bringing in more content that gets her perspective on things. And I mean, me and Ellen are both very similar, that like talking to ourselves sometimes can feel like a loop. And it's just so much more fun to have a conversation like this. And
yeah.
so I'm really excited that Ellen asked me to come on to some of those episodes so we can have more like candid, natural conversations about what's going on in business, what we've been trying. So I'm
Mhm.
really excited to be here. I remember the first time I was on the show, that was probably like in 2021. I would have
Yeah, I
never
remember.
thought that I would be a recurring voice, but hey, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. I mean, I love banter, but I'm also, for those of you who know me, I'm also like someone that really wants to get to a point as well. So it's like banter in the sense of like a conversation with a friend, but we're not just going to like, gab about random things that have nothing to do with your business. Like you're still going to get really practical insights from those types of episodes, because we'll be looking at like what are some of the marketing trends that we've noticed, right, like in the last month, or in this season, that we think are really brilliant, like dissecting maybe our favorite standout campaigns that we've seen businesses do. This piece too I'm extra excited about, because I get all of my best ideas outside of our little online business bubble. And especially with even within the online business bubble, the niche of like content creators, course creators, expert-based or knowledge-based businesses. So I mean, I hear all the time from my peers, they're like, oh my God, Ellen, you always come up with such creative ideas. Like, where do you even think of these things? And I'm like, honestly, I just like pay attention. I pay attention to what other industries are doing. Like I remember one like brilliant idea I had like literally came from observing airlines, like how major airline brands run their loyalty programs. I was like, "Oh, that's like such an interesting business strategy." And then, things like that. Like I have these thoughts all the time, and I have these conversations in private with my friends in Voxer, but I'm like, "Let me bring those conversations to the podcast. Like let me share with you what I'm observing and what practical things you can borrow from other businesses who are out there killing it," right? Also, Sabrina, I feel like is like way more tuned into pop culture than I am. So like pop culture meets business culture. I'm sure we'll have some fun chats about things like that when it makes sense. It's not going to be every time. And also, yes, bringing back more of those like behind the scenes experiments in our own company, things that we've been testing and trying that have worked well. Those of you who were part of the C suite previously, the membership that we had a while back, you'll remember a lot of our episodes were like things that we were doing in our own business that we weren't teaching or selling access to anywhere else, but you guys were getting like the full details, the full breakdowns, and able to utilize those same strategies in your business. So we want to bring more of those back. And again, these new formats are going to be like the exception, not the norm. Like the case studies are still going to be the foundation of our Monday episodes. But I would say like in a given month, right, there's 4 to 5 Mondays. So in any month, you'll be getting anywhere between like 4 to 5 episodes. I would say like in a month with like 4 episodes, 3 of them you can expect to be the traditional case study that you're used to. And that fourth one, right, might be one of these other formats that we're experimenting with. And a lot of this is going to have to do with listener feedback too, which we can talk about in our next bit. But anyways, that's the gist of what we're envisioning for next year.
Yeah. And also, I want to point out that this is not going to be a separate podcast. It's not going to be a completely separate show. It's all going to be still under the Cubicle CEO podcast that you're listening to right now. But Ellen, if you want to explain a little bit more of the logistics behind that.
Yeah, absolutely. So podcasting platforms are a tricky thing, you guys, because every podcast player kind of has its like own set of rules, its like own way of delivering content. So basically, if you listen on Spotify, for example, and you become a paid subscriber of our show, you should, and I say should because theoretically this is how the synced feeds work, but we're still kind of like fine tuning the tech. But theoretically on Spotify, you'll see the premium episodes, so the locked Monday case study episodes or Monday episodes in general. You're going to see those and our public Wednesday bonus episodes and our entire back catalog of 400 episodes that we've published so far. You're going to see all of that in one seamless feed if you're listening on Spotify.
And the teaser episodes for the...
Yeah, and the teaser episodes. Yes. So basically, if you're listening on Spotify, theoretically, you should see literally everything in one feed. Even if you're not a paying subscriber, you'll probably see the full episodes on Mondays show up in the feed. They will just have a locked icon where when you click to play it, it will prompt you to go subscribe if you want to actually be able to play it. So that's how Spotify works. On Apple, premium content will exist on a separate feed, but like Sabrina said, it's still under the same show branding. So we're probably going to just have like a slightly different color of our podcast cover so it's not confusing to you from like the public feed. And we'll also have like on the show cover, it will probably say something like Cubicle to CEO Premium so that you guys can instantly recognize, okay, here's the premium feed that I'm paying for, and then here's like the public feed. But we just want to be really clear. We're not starting like a second show or like, here's our new private podcast, right? No, it's not like that. It's like, this is still all Cubicle to CEO. It's one show. It's just that some of the episodes are locked and some of them are not locked. So how they deliver to you or display to you will be different depending on what platform you're listening on. But the good news is you can listen on any podcast player of your choice. So I actually tested this. Like if you currently listen on Overcast or Podcast FM or Castbox or like any of those like third-party smaller players, if you subscribe to our premium feed, you will be able to access our premium feed in any of those players as well. It basically functions like a private podcast. Like when you subscribe to our show, you get your own unique listener link and you're able to plug that into any podcast player of your choice and you'll be able to have access to that private premium feed. It's just that on Spotify, it all is merged into one feed, which I love that visually, like it's way easier. But on almost any other player, including Apple, you're going to have two feeds. You're going to have our public feed and then our private premium Cubicle to CEO feeds. So I hope I did a okay job explaining that. The tech is still new to me and new to Sabrina as well. We are working our way through it. So we thank you in advance for your grace as we learn our way through this new model.
Yes, for sure. It's just a new experience for all of us. So like Ellen said, we appreciate your grace as we figure out how all of this works. But I know that the listeners will probably be curious about how ads play into this new episode structure. So why don't we talk about that for a little bit?
Yes, very important. So we're not cutting off ad revenue, but we are going to change how ads appear and such. So let me explain. On the premium episode, so if you're a paying subscriber, you will not hear programmatic ads. Now, programmatic ads, I know that's like a very like industry jargon term. Programmatic ads are the ads that some of you may have heard over the last year or two where I'm not reading the ad. It's like some random voiceover for, I don't know, all sorts of companies. I mean, all sorts of companies have appeared on our show through programmatic ads. It's usually like a 15, 30-second soundbite, and it's just like automatically inserted into our show by one of the ad networks that our show is part of. So we're going to take away those ads from our premium feed. So if you're a paying subscriber, you're not going to hear any of those on your, Monday case study episodes because we don't want to disrupt. Like we don't have a ton of control over what ads show up in the programmatic drops. And so it's not always super relevant to our listeners. And we just feel like that's not enhancing your listening experience. So we're going to remove that fully for you as a paid subscriber. Now, if you are a non-subscriber on our public feed, like when we post, let's say, the teaser clips for each episode, or sometimes if we have a bonus episode, you may still hear programmatic ads run through those. So anything that's on the public feed is kind of like more of like a free-for-all. Like there still may be programmatic ads that are running, but anything on the paid feed, you're not going to hear those type of ads. Now, we will still make ads available on our paid premium feed. The difference is that we're only going to allow high quality host read ads that we intentionally choose to put on our show. And we're going to limit the quantity a lot as well. So 1 to 2 maximum ads an episode. And honestly, you may have noticed lately, we haven't been running that many host read embedded ads anyway. So we're not saying every single episode on the paid feed is even going to have an ad. We're just saying there's the possibility that there could be up to a maximum of 2 ad spots per episode. At least in this moment in time, that's what we have decided. Now, the reason that we're not removing ads completely is because actually, this comes directly from listener feedback. We have surprisingly gotten a lot of positive feedback from our community, both for our newsletter and our podcast. People often tell us that our ads are actually extremely valuable and beneficial because it helps people discover new products, services, and resources that are actually a great fit or solutions for their business that they didn't know to look for, or were looking for solutions but didn't know where to find them. And we're like bringing right fit products, services, and resources. And when I say resources, sometimes those are free resources, sometimes those are grants, just like things that genuinely benefit your business. We don't want to remove the ability to share those things with you, right? So we're just doing ads in a way more intentional and pared down way so that the only ads you hear on the paid feed are hyper relevant, read by me, and genuinely beneficial to your business. And the other big thing here is that anytime we run, like a lot of times, honestly, our ads, and you'll see this a lot in our newsletter especially, are actually running to like a free resource. Like we're giving you access to free resources. But if it's for like a paid product or a paid service, we usually will negotiate with our advertisers and our sponsors and we'll say, hey, can you give our listeners a special discount or deal? So I feel like that's an added benefit too. If it's something that you were going to pay for anyways, or something that you were looking for anyways, we'd rather you hear about it through us and get a better deal, right? Save more money. And so we're always going to try to do that. We always try to advocate for our community and ask for that extra discount. So just know that's kind of our thesis on ads.
Love it. And I think there's so much to be said about going back to what I was saying about the bonus episode sponsors, just bringing more visibility to the things that you might not hear about because they're not the top 1% of companies that are doing that thing. And I find especially that the smaller businesses who are providing services actually have your interest in mind a lot more. So that's why we try and bring those types of people to the table. And that's why we're not entirely getting rid of ads, because if you're going to go spend that money, we'd rather you know a company that wants to give you the best experience possible and put them in front of you instead. But I guess on top of ads, what else can the subscribers of this premium podcast expect as far as the experience holistically being a part of this more niche down community?
Yeah. So, like I already mentioned, you can still expect 4 to 5 episodes a month. So, an episode every Monday, just depending on how many Mondays are in a month. In a typical month, like I said, the rotation's probably going to look like 3 case studies and then 1 new format, like a roundtable or, a musings kind of style conversation between me and Sabrina, or a behind the business experiment of our own. So that's kind of how the typical structure is going to look. You'll also have the opportunity to be a way more active participant in our show conversations and influence things like guest questions. Like if we have, let's say, a really high caliber guest coming in, because we're going to be scheduling way out in advance compared to, what we've been doing as a fully free show, we're going to be able to like drop in and say, hey, we have this guest coming on the show. Are there any specific questions you want us to bring to that conversation in addition to the case study questions that, we already have prepared? So you're going to have more input there. You're also going to be able to connect and discuss episodes with fellow subscribers in a private community app that's off of social media. So this will be a private community where you can ask additional questions, process takeaways, share ideas, discuss things with other listeners, and it's all going to be in a private app of ours. So that's another experience. Now, the branded piece of the app is kind of going to be a little bit slower of a process. We're going to have the community piece right away where you can like connect and discuss the episodes with people, but eventually we're going to move it into our own like branded app. So anyways, just kind of a heads up there. Subscribers will also be added to our close friends list on Instagram. So any stories that we post on Cubicle to CEO's Instagram that go to our close friends list, that's all going to be fellow subscribers. So that gives you more behind the scenes access and proximity to what we're working on in 2026. We're planning to be a lot more active over on that page next year. And honestly, this is true for us across the board. I feel like if you've been in our world for a long time, you know this is like a tenet we hold true to. We would always rather under promise and over deliver. I know that sounds like such a cliche, but it really is like it's really true in how we practice in our business.
And way better than the inverse.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want to do the opposite. So we would way rather under promise, over deliver. But we have so many ideas, you guys, up our sleeves that we want to test and eventually grow into with our subscriber community. So things like meetups for our podcast subscribers, in-person events that are exclusive to our podcast subscribers. We want to do more advisor group chats in the app with favorite guests. So we have done like one or two of these in the past. You may have experienced it again if you were like part of the C-suite, but we want to bring in, if there's like a favorite guest on the podcast, in addition to saying like, hey, what questions do you want answered on the actual show? Sometimes we might be able to like hire that expert, let's say, for an hour or two and have them come into a group chat and you guys can ask additional questions, right? Basically get like free consulting, pick their brains within that container and be able to have this back and forth direct access chat with this founder or entrepreneur who's kind of acting in the role of advisor for that mini like pop-up Q&A. So things like that, we definitely want to grow into. Other exclusive content we want to grow into. We have 1,000,001 ideas. We're not going to bore you with all of them here today, but like, just know like we have so many big dreams for like where we really see this going. And all of it is putting you guys more at the center of our conversations, you having more influence over, you know, what we're building. Because as a free show, it's really hard to bring in listener feedback at the level that we want because there's so many competing opinions or noise, right? And if we try to cater to every single individual listener, like our free show would just be an absolute mess and chaos. But I feel like within a vetted, more curated, paid base, right, with our paid subscribers, our paid community, we're able to lean in a lot more into like, what types of content are you really enjoying on the podcast? What types of guests, what types of themes or topics or types of case studies are you looking for more of? We're able to really get like deeper into those types of conversations and have a pulse on what you guys are wanting so we can co-create this experience with you.
Yeah. And I also think it removes the layer of disconnect between us and the subscribers, because obviously when you're on social media, if you're on Instagram, you can directly read the comments, but being a podcast that can be viewed on so many different platforms, we're getting input from Instagram, from reviews, from all of these other places. So having a localized place where the most engaged listeners are and can give us their feedback, that is just going to make the experience so much better, not only for the listeners, but for us as well.
Yes, that's such a great point. I genuinely am so excited to actually put like faces and names to our anonymous list. This happens to me all the time, Sabrina, is like I will be at a conference or like I'll just like happen to chat with someone in DMs and they're like, I've been listening to your show for years. Like I listen every Monday. And I'm like, I would have no idea. Like I would never know that unless you had told me. Like that literally just happened to me yesterday where someone was like, I've been listening in for years. Like I never miss an episode. I'm like, that's crazy because I didn't know. And we had never had a chat before that day. And so I was like, wow, how many more of those amazing members of our community am I not even aware exist because we just don't have a conversation in the DMs or I don't happen to meet them in person at some event. And so like I want to develop more relationships with our listeners.
Yeah, exactly. So if you want to be besties with us, then this is the way to do it. Okay, let's get into the thing that everyone's probably curious about. What does the pricing look like for this premium content?
Yes. So we're keeping it super simple and super accessible. It's going to be $17 a month for our founding subscribers. And there are no contracts. You can cancel anytime. We don't want to hold you hostage to a subscription. Like, we are here to create, to keep creating, I should say, but even improve on best in class content that's so good you never want to miss an episode. That's why we want you to stay, is because like our content genuinely gives value to your business. So $17 a month for our founding subscribers. We've been told that our case studies pack as much value as paid masterclasses. So think of like the 4 to 5 episodes you get monthly as basically paying $3 to $4 admission per deep dive, right? Per show, per conversation, whatever it looks like. So we hope that this pricing feels really accessible, really doable for you, while still honoring the amount of work that we have to invest into creating a show like this, and like we said, to help us fund the future of what we want our show to grow into. So thank you so much to anyone who chooses to support our show in this way. We truly appreciate you. And we will probably eventually move to a higher price point, moderately, I should say, $35 a month. I don't know exactly when this switch will happen. Maybe like after reaching our first 300 founding subscribers at that $17 a month price point. Not 100% sure when this will happen or what will trigger it. So my best advice to you is just lock in the best price while it's available. So while we have this founding price of $17 a month, get in now, because your price won't change. Even if we increase the price later for later subscribers, your price will remain $17 a month. So highly recommend you jump on it while it's that.
And as a reminder, this all can be a tax write-off, so use your business card.
Every single time someone says that, I'm always reminded of David in Schitt's Creek when he's
Yes.
like, it's a write-off, and like, and his
Who
dad's like,
pays
what?
for it?
Yeah,
The write-off
oh no,
people.
the government, the write-off people. Yeah, no, but really, consult with your CPA, obviously, but this does typically qualify as a business tax deduction. So yeah, charge it to your business card. Let's save you some money on taxes while also pouring more money into your business from all the goodies that you learn from our show.
Yes, love it. All right. Now, what does this rollout look like? What can we expect for the podcast content the rest of the year, moving into next year, and when this officially launches?
Yes. So if you're listening to this episode when it's airing in real time in December 2025, there is going to be a waitlist link right below you in the show notes for you to add your name to, and that will keep you in the loop on everything premium podcast related. So you'll get to even add your input, like as we build this subscriber experience for you pre-launch. We'll probably be asking questions, maybe putting polls out. Like if you are someone that wants to put your input in, get on the wait list. You'll also be the first to receive an invitation to join us as a founding subscriber when we open subscriptions, which means you'll have first dibs on that $17 a month founding price before it changes to $35 a month. So get on the wait list. If you have any inkling that you want to continue with us, make sure you get on that wait list in the show notes below. Now, if you're hearing this in like mid-January 2026 or beyond, you can still go to the show notes. It's just that we'll have swapped out the link. And at that point, you can just directly subscribe to our podcast. And again, the link will be below for you in the show notes when that goes live. As far as like the episode scheduling, there's going to be no additional new episodes for the rest of this month, December 2025. So this is the last episode you'll hear from us in December of this year, but we're planning to launch subscriptions in early to mid-January. So if you're one of our first subscribers that comes in through the door in early mid-Jan, your first 4 to 6 weeks in our premium feed, you're actually going to have immediate access to, I would say, anywhere between 8 to 10 bingeable premium episodes with me. So these are going to be solo episodes to get you started. It's going to help create a little bit of space and runway for us to get our bearings on our side with new case study guests in this new show structure. So during those first, again, 4 to 6 weeks, you'll have 8 to 10 episodes to consume. So double the amount that you would normally have paid for anyways. Each episode is truly like a masterclass with me. So we're going behind the scenes on a lot of topics that we haven't talked about publicly anywhere, or we don't even teach publicly anywhere. Like we don't have any paid courses or digital resources where you could buy to learn this thing from us. So this is the only space where you can access that information. So things like launch debriefs, talking about like our company valuation process, talking about, this is actually my favorite 2-part episode series that's going to go into this feed, is me breaking down how we run profitable paid challenges. This, when I say a masterclass, like this, truly, these 2 episodes could be a course in and of itself. We actually in the past have had people pay us over $1,500 for us to consult on the exact things that we're actually breaking down in this 2-part episode mini series. So you're going to get access to that. We're talking about like revenue stacking examples, talking about our experimentations with pop-up offers, talking about some of the unique promo strategies that we've tested recently. So like within the last year or 18 months when sales are slow, like that have actually worked well for us. So honestly, and I'm not overinflating this, truly this series alone, if I were to like pull out just these 8 to 10 episodes and sell it as its own private podcast or audio course, I would confidently sell this for $300 to $500. So the value in these episodes is easily worth that, but you get it all for $17 as an early subscriber. And then once we hit like late February, then we'll be back to our weekly cadence of new case study episodes on Mondays with different types of those new content pieces that we have teased in every 4th episode or so. So by late February, we'll be right back on schedule. And again, this is going to be more art than science as we figure out the exact right rhythm for our show based on your listener feedback. But again, that's one of the pieces that I'm most looking forward to, is that we get to bring you into the conversation. So for now, your call to action is simply add your name to our waitlist, go to the show notes to do that for feedback and first dibs. Or, if you're hearing this in January, go straight to the subscription link.
This might feel like a little bit of a break to you guys listening, but just know we're working diligently behind the scenes and there's going to be new content up before you even realize it. So I'm just so excited. It's going to be so fun. And I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. While this was obviously us talking about what we're doing as we move forward with the podcast and all of the exciting ideas we have, hopefully it was also a little bit of insight on how podcasts are run, how we've been running ours, so that you can kind of get a little bit more context on how this arm of a business can work, and also a more in-depth look at why we are making these decisions. It's not just, oh, we want to make more money because we want to make more money. It's we want to make more so we can do more for you guys. I'm also just so excited to be more of a voice and presence on the podcast. So hopefully you guys are all on board with that, but it's going to be so fun.
Thank you so much for all of your support over the last 6 years. Like I said at the beginning, this show would not have run as long as it has without you, your sharing with friends, your love and feedback in the DMs, in person. Like, it is the greatest joy and privilege of my life when I meet people in person and they tell me that this show has impacted them in a positive way or impacted their business in a positive way. It really is a gift. So thank you for being part of it. We're so excited to continue to have you in whatever capacity feels right for your business, whether you continue with us as a non-subscriber and you enjoy our bonus content monthly and, get to tune in to our teasers and stay kind of plugged in with our newsletter, or whether you are all in and ready to go into this next era with us and really be part of this community. We would love for you to join us as a paid subscriber and really appreciate your support there as well. So go join the waitlist. We'll be in touch soon. Thank you, Sabrina, for joining me today as well. And we'll chat with you in the new year.